How sweep it is, Mets fans. How sweep it is. How we doing, everybody? It's your guy, Wardy, here, and we're back at it, break down what I'm truly amped up to get into, which is a jam-packed Big Mets Update segment, an August 28th edition here on the WardyNYM platform, as we have so much to get into, headlined by Cowboy Ohtani himself and Mr. Nolan McLean. McLean not only dazzled yet again in his latest outing and this series sweep victory over the Phillies by a final score of 6-0, but McLean is further proving right before our very eyes that he is, in fact, the ace of this rotation as of now. But the great question is, how long will that last as Jonathan toes the rubber this Friday? I'm not sure, but I'm excited to get into it all, everybody, as we're going to break down more on the dominance of Nolan McLean here, his key remarks that he shared with the media, what he has to say about Jonathan getting set for his debut, and everything in between there. But if you guys want to know my initial reaction and analysis to this past night's series sweep against the Philadelphia Phillies, please make sure you check out our post-game live show that we did over the past day after you guys watch this, as well as checking out our recap video that we drop every single day in the AM in the Bleacher Report app. Simply head over to BR, look up Mets, look for my thumbnails as you scroll down. You'll find them. I have a 2 to 3 minute breakdown for you, a summarized fashion what happened in Mets land from the night prior. But as you guys can see, we got bananas in our post-game show this past night. We broke out Elmo here because when the rally is going, when we getting the vibes going with some type of thing going, whether it was Rally Pimp, OMG last year, Grimace, you name it, this year, we got our Rally Lobster going, which is an inside joke if you guys follow the platform, you know, and we got Elmo rocking as well, as it was Sesame Street Day this past day there at Citi Field. The Mets are undefeated in the Elmo era, so I thought it was only fitting that we showcased Elmo before we wrapped up that live show. Check it out in its entirety should you guys have interest. We had a lot of fun with it as always, as well as check me out in the Bleacher Report app. As I mentioned, guys, just simply scroll down, you'll see the new updated video dropping probably at the time you guys watching this now. It'll already be live for all you guys to check out there in the BR app. But we not only have to break down what was so dazzling about Nolan McLean, his key remarks, and a whole lot more. From there, we're going to get into the key news and the latest update in regards to El Troll himself and Francisco Alvarez. Alvarez made his rehab debut there this past night. It started strong and it ended terribly, and we're going to get into why exactly that is, and ultimately, how concerned should we be as Mets fans, if at all. From there, we're going to get into Jesse Winker and Jose Siri, because we all expected Jesse Winker to have a key, Jose Siri to have a key update, but no one expected anything in the positive front in regards to Jesse Winker, and yet we have it. So we're going to break down what's going on with them. Brandon Sproat, as David Stern spoke to the media over the past couple days in regards to Sproat, and clarified some things on his potential role and what exactly that'll be here inevitably for this Mets team sooner rather than later. We have a lot of else to break down in Mets land, as not only are we going to preview that Miami Marlins matchup, but we're going to give you guys a little bit of a deep dive into the latest in the Mets minor leagues, what's happening from Port St. Lucie working all the way up to AAA Syracuse, like we have done countless times in the past in our Big Mets Update segments. So sit back, relax, and get yourself ready for the ride, which is our latest Mets breakdown here in the WardyNYM platform. Hit that like and subscribe on your way, and let me know all your thoughts in the following, to the following topics in the comments down below. Apologies in advance if I'm slightly tongue-tied. I'm recording this at 4 a.m. sharp here. Have not slept yet. Haven't done it since I did my 2-hour live stream covering this Mets big victory against the Phillies. Then I had to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours there on my Bleacher Report content. Now we're doing this. So I'm going to probably be sleeping like a baby by the time this video initially drops. So hit that like and subscribe on to help support the platform. The grind never stops here on the platform, especially after the Mets do what they just did against the Phillies. How can you not be acting like a kid in a candy shop? Shout out to our amazing sponsors, as always, at SeatGeek, that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Simply utilize our promo code WARDY10. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. And there, yes, at our great friends, that being at Mumu, the official trading platform of the New York Mets, but more on them later on in the show. Folks, let's begin today's discussion by getting into what was so dazzling, so dominant, and so just jaw-droppingly good about Mr. Nolan McLean. Because as you guys can see here, McLean came to play, baby. And when I tell you that Nolan McLean dazzled, again, that's an understatement. We all watched it. We witnessed it with our very eyes. But the Mets have something unbelievably special here in Mr. Nolan McLean. And what he just did against the #1 analyst leading Philadelphia Phillies is something not only that's going to take your breath away, but you say to yourself, the Mets have something special here. They really do. Out of McLean's 8 shutty outing, allowing just 4 singles, no walks, 6 strikeouts, a .89 ERA. He is now making history, to say the least, guys. Let's get into it. Nolan McLean is the first pitcher in Mets team history. Yes, you heard that correctly. Franchise history. Nolan McLean is the first starter to record 3 consecutive wins to begin his young career. He also has the lowest ERA through 3 starts of any pitcher in franchise history, at sub-1 at .89 to be exact. And he's also the first Mets pitcher of any kind since 2008 with an 8-inning outing in his first 3 starts. Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say Nolan McLean is here to stay, and the Mets have club control with him for the next 6 years at the young age of 24. So as is, the Mets have Nolan McLean locked down until basically his age 30 season. And even having said that, let's give him another 6 years on that extension, huh? I want this guy extended yesterday the same way I'm hopefully going to say the same thing about Jonathan. I'm only kind of half joking as I say that. You want to lock up your young top pitching prospects early if you can, regardless on injuries and inconsistencies and things you can't predict. What we can say is that Nolan McLean did anything and everything there for this Mets team that we just saw, and it was jaw-droppingly good. Major shout out to Nolan McLean as he was dominant. And as we break down his arsenal, again, everybody shout out Pitch Profiler for the following graphic that I'm going to relay here. Pitch Profiler does a very good job on breaking down on a scale of 1 to 100 if it's going to be above or below league average with these respective pitches. And out of the 6 pitches that we saw Nolan McLean deal and throw over this past day, we did see he topped out right around 86 miles per hour, where he sat rather with his sweeper that he threw the most in this one, and was above league average. He was also above league average in his sinker at almost 10%, sitting right around 94 plus on the gun. We also saw that curveball was 10% above league average. Really good, really impressive. It had itself a roughly 38% whiff rate. That was the third pitch in the mix for him, sitting right around 80 miles per hour. The four-seam fastball was above league average as well, sitting 95 plus on the gun. The changeup was sitting right around 86, 87 on the gun, and that was league average, and also had an absurd, well over 40% whiff rate. And the cutter that we saw at right around, 89, 90 miles per hour also had a 50% whiff rate, even though we only threw it a couple times there, that we saw for right around league average. So Nolan McLean giving you anything and everything, looking better than expected, better than as initially advertised, because McLean in a 3-game sample size has had a greater stretch of baseball alone at the major league level than anything he's done for the most part in the minor leagues this year. That tells you that this guy knows how to step up. He's got that fire, he's got that moxie, he's got that confidence more than anything to go out and wheel it and deal it against Schwarbo, against Nicky C, against Harper, against everybody and your mother in that Phillies lineup. That is not a problem for the young, oh so dominant Nolan McLean. And when speaking about Nolan, everybody, let's hear from the man himself as he spoke to Steve Gelb's post-game yesterday, as well as the other key interviews that he shared with the media.
By with the star of today's game, Nolan McLean. 8 shutout innings, a brilliant performance. Nolan, this crowd has been on their feet for you all night. What's it been like to pitch in front of this atmosphere and get embraced by this fan base?
A little colder tonight. It was unbelievable. Just getting to go out there and compete in such an awesome fan base is unbelievable.
Nolan, you mentioned the word compete. I mean, this was a monster game for this team in terms of the division race, and you came out there, no fear, attacking, filling up the zone. What does it take, especially in just your 3rd major league start, to get to that place of confidence where you're just going to go after guys?
I think it just comes down to trusting the offense and trusting the guys to make plays behind me. When you got a defense like that, you just throw it in the zone and just trust them behind you.
You were using all your pitches today. Was that a game plan going in, or did you feel all were working in the bullpen?
I felt the change up early in the game, started using that a little more than I would normally. But yeah, just tried to mix them and keep them off balance best I could.
Nolan, how would you describe the magnitude of this series for this team, sweeping the Phillies, getting back within 4, and getting right back into that division race?
Yeah, every game's important, but when you can go and play in front of a crowd like this against a big rivalry, it's awesome.
Well, I'm not sure if you know this, and I don't know how many people in the crowd do, but we'll end the interview by telling you this. In the great history of New York Mets pitchers, you are the first to ever win your first 3 major league starts. Pretty impressive feat. Congratulations, Nolan McLean.
I appreciate it.
Lineup the way you did, has it kind of registered with you just to handle that lineup the way you did? Has it kind of registered with you what you did out there tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew about the lineup going into it, that I was going to have my hands full and was going to have some good stuff to get. I mean, top to bottom, they're stacked with hitters, so I definitely knew I had to bring some good stuff tonight.
As far as the efficiency you showed tonight, what was the key to that?
Just filling up the strike zone best I could, trying to keep them off balance. And once I felt like I could throw anything for a strike, I was just any count, trying to keep them honest and mix in fastballs, sweepers, curveballs, changes, whatever it might have called for.
What you could do, but this is a big jump. How much has this success maybe even surprised yourself?
I mean, I've always been a believer in my stuff. I'm a confident guy. Obviously, the hitters here are the best in the world, and I know that. But I also know, like, I have good stuff, and if I go out there and execute, I can get a lot of guys out as well.
You're going to have Jonah Tong here in a couple of days. What do you think about pitching the same rotation with him?
Yeah, that kid's special. I remember when I first got drafted, I stood in as a hitter on one of his bullpens just to watch, and it was, I haven't seen a fastball like that before, and I know he's developed 3 more pitches since then, and they're all plus, so it's going to be fun to watch him Friday. I can't wait to see him.
What stood out about the fastball that you hadn't seen in a fastball like that?
I mean, it just gets on you, and it was only in a bullpen too, so I can't imagine being a hitter and having to face him with the unique delivery he has, as well as mid-upper 90s.
Absolutely love to hear that insight from Nolan McLean in regards to Jonah Tong. And also, apologies, guys, if the audio levels was a little off there. That just is the nature of the beast when I don't have the same exact audio as SNY and others, when they're all kind of different levels, from the post-game interviews to even the post-game that they do actually on the field itself. But I hope you enjoyed all those little clips the way that I most certainly did, especially hearing him talk about Jonah Tong, and just, again, that fastball, it explodes out the hand. And we all know this with Tong, and we'll expand more on this later on the show. But in summary, when you have a guy that has a Lincecum-esque windup, that he really has that 12 o'clock release all the way upstairs like this, that he somehow is throwing north of 98 on you, there's not a whole lot you can do as an opposing batter. And I'm really excited to see what Tong can do. That's an understatement. McLean, Tong, guys that I've been wanting for to get called up all season long, have been crying about this for the past 2+ months now, and who knows what would have happened if McLean got called up sooner. But listen, everything happens for a reason. He's up here now. That's all that matters, and he has been absolutely stellar. Man, oh man, are we spoiled to watch ourselves some Nolan McLean. Easily the most confident, the most aura-esque pitcher that we've seen to begin their major league career since a guy like Matt Harvey. That's the vibes I get right away. I get the DeGrom vibes right away as well, especially a guy who's not long removed from being a position player. He's only a year and a half removed from being a two-way player, initially drafted out of OSU by this Mets team. And as he just relayed himself, back when he was a hitter taking BP against Tong, he was blown away. So it's kind of crazy to think about a world where McLean was a hitter for this Mets team right now. How good would he be? Because he was a solid hitter, but we know that his stuff is absolutely ridiculous, and it's a lot of plus when we evaluate a guy like Nolan and the upside that he has in this Mets rotation. So as we talk about Nolan McLean, everybody, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. One, what is your excitement level with someone like him? Because again, we haven't had a homegrown talent to this degree really since going back to, again, the Harvey, the Thor, the Wheels. Even though we didn't technically draft him, but he felt like a homegrown talent, still never should have gave up on him. Shout out Brody Van Wagenen and Will Ponce for being absolute schmucks. The same Jacob deGrom, if I didn't say him already. Everyone, it's Steven Matz in the early beginning of his career. Point stands, the Mets, going back to the mid-2010s, they had a lot of young in-house options, and now they're doing that again. You know, the Mets were just deemed as the #1 farm in baseball per ESPN, and they were also deemed the #1 farm in baseball in pitching staff and depth per MLB Pipeline just over the past 24 to 48 hours. So things are cooking now, and they could not come at a better time. And as I stated in my post-game show, I'll say it again, we have a lot of people to thank for the development of Nolan McLean, and it definitely goes in hand with the Mets pitching lab, with Eric Yeagers, all the advanced information that they're utilizing there, but also Jeremy Hefner, Desi Driscoll to a degree, even player development side. When you look at Andy Green, that great hire for David Stearns over the past calendar year plus, but it really starts with Billy Epler, and that is something that I feel like gets lost in the wind a little bit when we talk about previous Mets front offices. But who was the man who drafted Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat? It was Billy Big Bucks, everybody. So say what you will about his lackadaisical 2022 trade deadline and, you know, not doing as much as we would have otherwise liked to see. But when it came to scouting, he was on top of it. So Billy Epler, he has his hands all over this Mets team and will continue to as these young stars continue to blossom now from the farm to the major leagues. But going on now from talking about Nolan McLean, everybody, let's get into the latest here in Mr. Francisco Alvarez, because we do have some things to share in regards to Alvarez. And let's start with the following, because as you guys can see right here, right now, let's get rid of that. Let's move this. Bang, bang, boom. Let's do this. All right, guys, as you guys can see right here, I'm just going to let the audio do the talking.
0-2 the count. Boyle rocks and fires. Ground ball fair inside the third base bag. Long run after for Ismael Munguia. Alvarez will jog into second with the stand-up double with 2 down in the inning and send Jared Young to the plate. Boy.
So we love that, right? Alvarez begins his first rehab assignment in AAA Syracuse. This comes a day after he spoke to the media and said that he feels no pain in his thumb. He's basically good to go. He has a specialized custom splint that he's wearing on that thumb, and it's causing no issues with him swinging the bat. And he's catching, because again, it's not his catching hand that's the issue. Well, I spoke too soon, clearly, because what happens next is going to have us all cringing. There it is, everybody. 90-mile-per-hour sinker by the Schmuck 26. I don't know who he is, but I better never see him again. Throw this man into a dumpster. You got to do something. He just drilled Francisco Alvarez on the hand. And per Carlos Mendoza, I'll just let Mendy say it himself.
Do you have an update on Francisco Alvarez?
No, I was just told that he got hit on the pinky and he's getting checked out right now. So, but I haven't heard anything.
There's a pinky on his
left
hand.
Yes, yeah, the receiving one. Yes.
So the only positive out of this is the fact that it wasn't the hand that he just injured. But the downside is that he just hurt his hand again. And it's now his catching hand, which is a greater issue because you need that to catch, one. And two, Alvarez has had 2 significant injuries to that hand over the past calendar year and a half. The hands have just been the absolute demise of Alvarez, which is very frustrating. I met Alvy in person. I can tell you his hands are like little mitts. Massive hands. It makes sense as to why they're kind of getting hit, if I'm being honest, because it does take up a lot of surface area when he's gripping that bat. But all jokes aside, in all seriousness, guys, Alvarez, we just have to hope and pray that the imaging, if he gets imaging done, it comes back fine. Again, they just said he's being evaluated, and that's that. Once we have further updates, we'll share it. But I would say, as of now, in regards to Alvarez in particular, it does look like that, unfortunately, for his sake, you know, he's going to at least be sore at minimum. Hopefully, it's not much more than that. But again, we're going to wait and see what happens in regards to Francisco Alvarez and this news. God willing, as long as it's nothing serious, he will continue his rehab, and then he will return this Mets team sooner rather than later. You could even make the rightful argument that he should have just been with this team to begin with and not even have rehab going, because he's catching games. He's doing basically everything that you would want him to do at the major league level right now, and he's feeling fine up until this. But leave it to, unfortunately, us Mets fans having to witness Alvarez begin a rehab assignment, and live in real time, we see him, again, facing a bunch of schmucks, a bunch of garbage bin pitchers there in AAA that don't know how to command the strike zone, and it came back to bite them in the you-know-what right away. Fingers crossed, we're hoping the best for Alvy, because if the Mets get this man back healthy, it changes everything. Because David Stern spoke to the media over the past day, and he reiterated how grueling of an injury this is, how painful of an injury this is. Yet Alvarez has been unbelievably adamant on staying in this Mets lineup. Understandably so. Alvy's the exact kind of guy to be that way, especially after the time that he's missed each of the past few seasons with hand-related injuries. He just wants to be on the field and impact this team for the better. That's why Alvarez was so brilliant leading up to his unfortunate demise of an injury. Over 1,000 OPS, 300 batting average, doing anything and everything that you could possibly ask for from the young catching phenom. Well, Alvy, we'll see what is next for him, but we know that he wants to be out there. He will do everything to be out there. So if he's not out there, you know that's a big deal, and it's not good. But we'll wait and see again on the Alvarez front. So again, what started off brilliant in this rehab outing ended terribly, just because, sadly, this is the nature of the beast when not only being a Mets fan, but just the nature of the beast with being a baseball fan. Things that you don't want to happen tend to happen far more often than not if the baseball gods have anything to say about it. But guys, we have a lot more to get into, especially in the case of Jesse Winker, Jose Siri, Jonathan, previewing that series against the Marlins, the 4-game set, getting into the latest in our farm report and everything in between. But before we do exactly that, everybody, let's hear a quick word from today's video sponsor. Folks, have you been seeing that big orange bowl that's making Mondays at Citi Field way more exciting? I'm talking about our amazing sponsor on the platform at Mumu. As the #1 Mets channel on YouTube, I absolutely love to break down stats, analysis, really getting into the nitty-gritty numbers, and that is why I love so much Mumu, because they do exactly that with that same analytical approach when it comes to investing. It's a trading platform with professional-grade tools and premium research that other companies usually charge a pretty hefty price for, all come for free when you sign up as a customer with Mumu. But folks, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And thanks to Mumu's partnership with our beloved New York Metropolitans, all Mumu customers can get free tickets to any and every Mets home game on a Monday throughout the course of the season. That's right, folks. Free baseball all season long for the greatest fan base in sports. Not to mention Moo Millions. If the Mets pull off 100 wins this season, one lucky Moo customer is going to come out winning $1 million. And what's nuts about this is that Moo has already given away $10,000 when the Mets hit first 25 wins this season, as well as $20,000 when they hit the 50-win mark. And when the Mets inevitably hit 75 wins, they're giving away $30,000. But as much as they love baseball, Moo's number one priority is jump-starting your investing journey, which is why they're giving the WardyNYM community up to $1,000 in NVIDIA stock just for making a qualified deposit and becoming a Moo customer. So folks, what are you waiting for? Head to start.moomoo.com/Wardy, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description to join the Moo community. Now, let's get back to our Mets. All right, folks, I actually want to get into our next segment here because we have to talk about Brandon Sproat as well, and in the same light as Jesse Winker and Jose Siri, in which we have positive updates with them. And I'm pretty certain that the video that I have here is exactly what I'm looking to play. If not, I'm going to relay you from David Stearns himself what he had to say to Joel Sherman and John Heyman on their official The Show podcast presented by the New York Post and their YouTube sports channel that I'm an active contributor with. And let's hear what Mr. Stearns had to say.
Race to get in, and then a race, in the postseason where this becomes some level of tournament baseball. Could part of this decision with Tong and or Sproat be simply starting September 1st, are they one or two of our 14 best pitchers? Should they be here to help us in some form, whether it's at a starter or something else, or does it disrupt development too much?
Starting with the Sproat situation, that was not a shift to the bullpen, and I think it may have gotten misinterpreted too much. If you look at how we've handled our AAA starters throughout the year, periodically we do ask them to pitch in back of an opener, because that is something that at times we do in the big leagues. We did it with Tidwell when he was up earlier. And also we never know what role we're going to need someone in. And so having these starters with the experience of not running out onto the field with their team at the first inning, there's some value to that. So this was pre-scheduled for Brandon. I know it made a lot of noise, but this had been coming. He was going to pitch behind an opener because it was his turn to do it. Once you get into these latter stages of the year in September, certainly into the playoffs, how do you structure a staff? And yeah, the priority is who are our 14 best pitchers? How do we structure a major league pitching staff that allows us to get outs at all parts of the game? And so at previous points in my career, we have used top starter prospects out of the pen. It's at times worked pretty well, not necessarily committing to doing that here, but we'd be foolish not to consider it.
So David clarified one thing here, and I guess that is in regards to the reliever role for Sproat. However, I still think on how he finished this conversation and this topic in particular, that there's a gray area. And I think that gray area is the matter of fact that the Mets are likely still going to utilize Brandon Sproat more to reliever format than a starter. But I think the difference is that Sproat is not expected as of now, at the time I was talking on August 28th, 4:25 a.m. Eastern of me recording this right now, in the light of Sproat coming in as, a later inning reliever. He would come in more as that bulk guy after you have a spot starter, which makes endless sense as he just relayed. We did that with Blade Tidwell already this year, and now Blade Tidwell is no longer in the organization, and Sproat and Tidwell do actually have some similarities in how they profile, but I think we can all agree Sproat has higher upside, and the velo is ridiculous. Not that Tidwell doesn't have gas, because he does, but Blade kind of just showed his inability to really be an effective pitcher for more than an inning or so for this Mets team in his limited sample sizes before being traded as part of that three-player package with Drew Gilbert and Jose Budo to San Fran there to, in fact, receive the submariner that I love so much in Tyler Rogers. Re-sign him, Ray. If you know, you know. But to get back in this, Sproat looks like when he does get the call, that will be inevitable. It will probably be in that kind of setting where you have a spot starter or a piggyback situation. It's almost like me, especially, has been saying this for 2+ months now. It makes endless sense for the Mets to bring in a guy like Sproat who can eat multiple innings and lengthen things and lessen the blow of your bullpen by having Clay Holmes maybe go 4 or 5 innings. then you bring in Sproat. Maybe you have Clay go 3 innings, and then you bring in Sproat. Maybe you have someone go 2 innings, and then you bring in Sproat. The point that I'm trying to make here is that you can get creative. And the one commonality we saw with Blade Tidwell when he was utilized by the Mets in various ways this year is that there were multiple circumstances where we saw Tidwell again have a spot starter that he was dealing with. It was more of that than it was him to actually start the game, I felt like, even though you guys don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. I remember with Tidwell's outings this year, he had some where he actually started the game, and then he had others where he didn't. I feel like he had more where he didn't, where he had a spot starter for at least the first inning or two. Either way, it does appear that Sproat will inevitably get the call up with this Mets team sooner rather than later. I'd imagine that's going to happen within the next calendar week at the time this video first dropping. And when it does, especially as we get into September, I really think it's going to go in hand because of, again, Frankie Montas, 60 IL. Mont ass, he needs Tommy John surgery. He's out of here. Terrible signing by David, and he'll be the first to tell you that, even though a lot of other people have said that prior to him himself, actually, to own up to it. Outside of Frankie Montas, Reed Garrett is now on the injured list with that right elbow inflammation. That needs to calm down. There's no immediate rush for him. And while they're not overly concerned there, they know that they have a 2-week window now to kind of maximize this roster role. And they're going to most certainly do that. So Sproat, we'll wait and see what is next for him, everybody. But we do have further updates to share in regards to not just Brandon Sproat, everybody, but also what is going on with Jose Siri and Jesse Winker. Because, folks, I was as jaw-dropped as you were. We all expected and anticipated Jose Siri to begin a rehab assignment, but I did not anticipate Jesse Winker to be going right along with him. Yet he did, guys. Both Jose Siri and Jesse Winker played in games over this past day. They played for the Port St. Lucie Mets. We're going to break down how exactly they fared in this latest outing for Port St. Lucie, because the St. Lucie Mets unfortunately lost here 3-1. The craziest thing about the St. Lucie Mets, though, which has been the same thing with every Mets minor league team outside of Syracuse, is that they've been dominating. They have a 72-49 record this year. I don't remember the last time St. Lucie's ever had a record along those lines. They're finally good, and there's finally, like, depth, quality from AAA down of a lot of great stars, young, high potential guys in each of these respective levels. Jesse Winker went 0 for 2 at DH in this initial rehab assignment. Jose Siri had himself a walk and a run scored, but no hits. And he went 0 for 0 because he didn't even have like a true at bat there. Just had a walk, and that was about it there, and a run scored. Because for those that don't know, and this now makes it 7 times, Jose Siri, every single time he has been on base for the Mets this year, which was 6 times in 10 games, he scored every single time. Now, in his first game that we see him in a rehab, doesn't even get a hit, but gets on with a walk and scores. That's the Jose Siri effect. He's going to leg a single into a double, if not a triple, but he's going to steal home the way that he did against Houston the first series this year. He's a human highlight reel, and yes, he swings and misses more than anyone else when at his best in the game. He has elite defensive and base running numbers while having putrid swing and miss rates. Having said that, there's a reason why David Stearns traded for Jose Siri to be that Harrison Bader replacement, and now that Tyrone Taylor is finally starting to play competent baseball, and Cedric Mullins isn't nearly as bad as what a lot of you fans, for whatever reason, make him out to be. I don't know why you guys thought we were landing Yoenis Cespedes at the deadline. There's always going to be league average bat Cedric Mullins, nothing more, nothing less, with some very strong base running. He stole a lot of bags for the Mets array, and obviously solid defense. We're just going to exclude what happened there with the ball drop in Atlanta. If not the Nationals, one of those series is already a blur for me in that 3-3 road trip. Regardless, everybody, the Mets are going to have an abundance of options, and when Siri and Winker do eventually return to this Mets team, they can go about this in a couple ways. You can either go A, you can just have them be added as those extra pieces to the roster when the rosters expand in September, or B, and I think this is what's going to happen, the Mets are going to bring some of these guys up with the corresponding moves being some of the current injury statuses of the players. I think that there is a role where the Mets consider DFAing Tyrone Taylor, but after the latest week of baseball that he's played, I think he's played himself back into solidifying that he will not go anywhere for the remainder of the season at minimum. I could be wrong, but I think TT has performed well enough. I think Stearns has seen enough, and I think Mendy has seen enough to suggest to say, hey, you know, we still want you to be part of this team because we know that you do have value defensively, offensively, very sporadic, but base running, we know he's strong. So the Mets have an abundance, everybody, and Cedric Mullins, who felt like more of the Jesse Winker replacement as a lefty veteran bat to add to the latter half of this lineup now, will be very interesting to see how they go about the usage with these players, because even if he's limited, Jesse Winker's a guy that can come off cold off the bench and hit an absolute tank. He's a vibes guy as well. Siri's a vibes guy. We're talking about the Mets getting aura different vibes going at Citi Field. And listen, Elmo helps a lot. We know that. But what helps a lot, too, is by actually having the right personalities in the clubhouse. And the Mets are going to be getting that now, which is massive. Like, their impact alone, just based on their personalities, I think is going to bode oh so well for this Mets team. Not just in the case of Siri, but most certainly in the case of Jesse Winker. And Winker, who thrived with this Mets team, we cannot forget all the impact that Jesse had for the better for this Mets team that we saw over the past season there since they acquired him from the Nationals at the trade deadline. A lot to give. A big bat that obviously can blast one out of the ballpark. Was brilliant in postseason play for this Mets team. I still am beyond bothered, but I'm going to let it not get in the way of me having a nice day on Carlos Mendoza not playing Jesse Winker enough in last year's NLCS against the Dodgers. Buddy was raking, yet he wasn't in there when there were so many key opportunities to put him in there to start in the ballgame, or at least come in as a pinch hitter later on in said game. But I digress. That was last year. This is this year, and these Mets are finally starting to get on it here, and it could not come at a more important time. So now that we talk about Jesse Winker, Jose Siri, and Brandon Sproat, all the latest on that front, let's get into wrapping up the show with our two-segment part, and it starts with the following. One, let's preview this Miami Marlins series. Now, I'll be frank by saying that, no, we're not going to deep dive the numbers too heavy with the Miami Marlins lab. We know the Marlins are pesky. We know that regardless of their standing, they're always going to be a problem. Kyle Stowers headlines the big bat in that lineup that we need to be fearing, because Stowers, the former Baltimore Orioles prospect that they gave up last year's trade deadline for Trevor Rogers. Rogers was horrendous last year. Now he's one of the better starters in all of the American League, so it's actually working out well for both sides now. But Stowers was a stud, has been a stud, and will continue to be. Clay Holmes is towing the rubber game one against to be determined there for Miami. Holmes has a 3.6 ERA and 109 strikeouts on the year, and is looking to hopefully give the Mets 6 strong innings against this Miami Marlins squad. Miami is 62-71 on the season after being right around 500 not long after the deadline, after they swept the Yankees there in Miami. Game 2, we got Yuri Perez, who is an absolute stud of a young right-hander. Great to see him being healthy, but I also hate the fact that the Mets have to face him. The great news, though, it is going to be a pitcher's masterclass. You got Yuri Perez, who's so exciting, one of the better young right-handers out of all pitchers in the National League, facing off against Jonah Tong as Jonah makes his MLB debut. Tom with a sub 1.5 ERA, just under 180 strikeouts and 113 or so innings this year between AA and AAA. Did not allow a single run in his 2 AAA outings before getting the call. Jonah Tong, who is as dominant as any, deemed by many as the best pitching prospect in baseball. You guys are sitting here getting all excited about Nolan McLean. What if I told you that Jonah Tong might just have as much upside, if not more? Guys, this is a reality. If Tom goes out and shoves away that we hope this Friday, the Mets may very well have Jonah Tong and Nolan McLean help frontline their rotation as they head into postseason play. Who would have thought this heading into the season? Seriously, like, this is just jaw-dropping. It just shows you how good they are, but it also shows you how much of a weak link we have had in this Mets rotation with a lack of length from guys like Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, who has really not looked good since coming back from injury, unfortunately. Same thing can be said to a certain degree with some of these other guys, too. But David Pearson's been kind of Mr. Consistent outside that. They haven't had consistency in the rotation. Now it appears that they're going to get that now from the young guns out of all people. But again, not going to complain about that. So that's your Game 2 matchup this Friday. And we will be alive for not only post-game coverage, but barring changes, we do intend to be alive for an in-game watch party, not only live on YouTube, but as well as the Playback app. Simply head over to playback.tv/WardyNYM. Join our community. We have hundreds of members there already, guys. It's free to join. All you need is an MLB TV subscription. You can pair that with our live show. So I'll be live reacting in real time, doing play-by-play analysis, everything in between. A Ton's hopefully dominant MLB debut there. But we'll be live on YouTube, where it shows a scoreboard and it's automated, and then a QR code will pop up periodically to tell you, hey, head over to the Playback app if you want to actually watch the Mets game live in real time while listening to me as basically doing the broadcast versus maybe Gary, Keith, and Ron. Or you can have both on. You can have the audio levels higher for Gary, Keith, and Ron. I could be lower for you, and then you can make it louder when I have my reactions, among other things. If you're in the Playback app, you'll be able to watch a game, as I mentioned, live in real time there throughout the entirety of Jonas Han start with yours truly, but we'll be simulcasted in Playback and on YouTube. And then once that is over, we'll be doing our post-game reaction and breakdown on the WardyNYM platform. Win, lose, or draw, we will make that happen. But that's the Game 2 matchup, everybody. So as we now get to Game 3 of this series, Game 3 for the 4-10 game. This is big weekend. This is Wardy's birthday weekend, so we're having a little fun here. And what do we see? David Peterson with his 3.18 ERA is going to be towing the rubber against Mr. Edward Cabrera, who I would have loved at this past year's deadline, but he did not get traded because they were asking for a king's ransom. He has just over a 3 ERA, 3.3, and Pearson has a 3.18. They're right around the same in strikeouts this year as well, right around a $135 or so. And towing the rubber for the series finale, hopefully trying to best past what has been a really rough go of it the past month and a half. That is Kodai Senga. Senga's towing the rubber against to be determined as of now for Miami. Senga with his 2.73 ERA on the year, trying to pick up off of where he left off before his injury this year, when Senga was looking like the ace, the dominant pitcher that the Mets have been longing to see since then, since he has returned since from injury. But before we get out of here, guys, let's get on to the last thing. Let's rapid fire break down the Mets minor leagues. Port St. Lucie lost 3-1 in their latest ball game. But outside of Winker there, outside of Siri, Mitch Voigt, Mets top draft pick from this past year, looks brilliant with the defense and the base running, but hasn't hit a lick thus far as he's still making his proper adjustments there. Outside that, there really isn't anything else notable on the offense. Pitching-wise, we saw Jimenez go 4 shutty with a 1.77 ERA, and that's all she wrote. As we get into the Brooklyn Cyclones, Brooklyn also a 70-win team in the minor leagues this year. Love to see it. They won 8-7 over the Renegades in this one, and the standouts were Bay, not Jason, different Bay, hitting his first home run of the year there, and that's pretty much all she wrote. There weren't too many other key notables offensively in this one. Marco Vargas was leading off at a 1-for-5 game with a run scored, part of the David Robertson trade back in 2023 with the Miami Marlins. If you know. Boston Burrow had a really good game, but he's had an underwhelming season. 3-for-5 with 2 runs scored and RBI, but he's just batting not a buck, 224 with a 603 OPS. As we get into the pitching in this one, what do we see? Kota, who has just moved up actually from low A to high A, was greeted rudely for his first outing there that we saw as a starter for Brooklyn. 5 innings of 4 earned runs there, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. He was not the only man moved up to high A, as Will Watson was moved up as well. If not to high A, then most certainly double A. I think he got moved up to double A, but Will Watson looks like the next phenom of a pitching prospect in the Mets org, which is exciting because he enters the fold with Jack Weniger, with Zach Thornton, with RJ Gordon, with Jonathan Santucci. The list goes on and on, everybody. The Mets have such a stupid abundance of great young pitching talent. You know how we raved about Sproat, Tong, and McLean this year? We're going to be raving about some of those names I just relayed your way plenty next year, and some of them will make their way to the major leagues, not only because of injuries and inconsistencies, but because they forced the Mets' hand, the way that Jonathan most certainly did here, leading him to get the call over a guy like Brandon Sproat. The Remo Ponies lost 6-5, but they're a 79-41 team this year. They've been so good. AJ Ewing has been a man possessed. He steals more bags than anyone else, it feels like. And not only is AJ elite with the base running, as he has 8 stolen bags there, but has a lot more in the other levels this year. AJ's batting .371 with a just under 900 OPS, 2-for-4 game there with the runs scored. Jacob Reimer continuing to rake there, his 9th home run of the season there that we saw for the Rumble Ponies, 2-for-4 game, 2 RBIs, 282 average, 893 on the OPS. Outside that, not a whole lot else to show for the most part, guys, but that's what you got on the pitching-wise. Jonathan Santucci, one of his worst outings of the year, actually, went 4.1 innings, allowed 6 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Unfortunately, did not get the results that he's looking for, but he's been good otherwise. Ryan Lambert has squirrels inning in relief, and he's throwing gas. A top draft pick by the Mets a couple years ago, 1.96 ERA for the young flamethrower right-hander. And last but not least, AAA Syracuse, everybody. They lost 6-1 to the Rail Riders, which went in hand with what we just talked about with, unfortunately, Alvarez getting drilled. And shout out to, that schmuck Boyle, who got the start, won 5.1 scrolls innings there for the Rail Riders, a sub-5 ERA. Why? Because he's a bum. That's why. That schmuck is the man who hurt Francisco Alvarez and ended his rehab stint, at least for that game. Carson Bench, returning from injury, he was on the 7-day IL. First game back, 1-for-4 with a run scored. Why? Because he's a beauty. That's why. Jet Williams did not record a hit. He's had quite the unfortunate adjustment to AAA. Hasn't really looked too good there yet, but that takes time. Luis Angel Acuna went 1-for-3 with an RBI in this one. Alvarez had the only extra base hit in this ball game. Jared Young did not record a hit, but he's batting .296 with a .952 OPS. Pretty darn good, if you ask me. So there's been a lot to like from a lot of these guys, even the veterans included there in the Mets minor leagues. But folks, that's about going to do it. Syracuse, Justin Hageman allowed 4 runs over 4.1 innings. Dylan Ross went 2 shutty, now is a 2.28 ERA. The Mets are going to consider calling anyone up as a reliever from the minor leagues. That's a true reliever. Dylan Ross needs to be that next man. He has been lights out since moved up to Syracuse in the Mets farm this year. But that's all I got for you, everybody. Just under 40 minutes. I'm going to go try to get some sleep. Let's see how crazy my day is going to be. But I'll see you all later on today at the time of this video dropping for our latest post-game coverage between the Mets and the Marlins. Game 1 of a 4-game set. We'll break it all down here on the WardyNYM platform. Let me know all your thoughts and reactions in the comments down below to McLean being so damn good. Alvarez, unfortunately, looked great, then unfortunately got drilled before that ball game ended. Winker, Siri, they're working their way back. Sproat, and everything else in Mets land. And thank you guys again for watching. Hit that like and subscribe on your way out. And as always, no matter what, folks, let's go Mets. See you guys again real soon.